Hey, what's up? This your boy Elijah. Welcome back to another edition of Glenn's is How I See It, episode number 48 of Humble Dad. We got a special guest in the building. Reached out to this gentleman not too long ago. He was recommended by another individual, so you know he got to be world class. With nobody other than Mr. Charles Dents. How are you today, sir?
I'm perfect. Good day. Yeah.
Man, good day, perfect. Hey, even with the rain, huh?
Even with the rain, there's always a purpose for everything. So we need the rain, so we just roll with it.
That's good stuff. So
Yes,
tell us a
sir.
little bit about who you are, Charles.
Well, I am a dad, a husband. My wife and I, we've been married 38 years. Our son is 29. I have a grandchild that's 2 years old, and so yeah, family man. Like to have family gatherings, and had a family gathering here for Mother's Day. So yeah, that's what my life centers around. I'm a IT professional by trade. I also have a digital transformation business that I run on the side as well. So yeah, it's schedule stays fairly full.
It
So
sounds like it. It
yeah, but
sounds like
it's all good. It's all good.
well, I definitely appreciate the time that you're giving me. So let's get directly into it. First question is, what do you feel like the difference between a father and a dad is, or do you feel like there isn't one?
Yeah, I believe there is a difference. When I think of that question, I think that of a father is someone who can birth, right? They do the deed, and they plant the seed, and there's a child.
Okay.
Where a dad is one who is involved. A dad is someone who nurtures. We always think of the woman nurturing, but the dad plays a role in nurturing as well. You know,
Mm,
we as a dad, we have a role in what goes into our children, right? And what they see in a man. Do they see a man that's involved? Do they see a man that's detached? Do they see a man that doesn't care? Do they see a man that's loving and
mm,
that's kind, or mean and hateful? What do they see in that man? And a dad should have those positive qualities, but also be one who uh, is just has is a disciplinarian as well, right?
mm,
So one who has a certain level of tolerance. But when I was growing up, basically wasn't allowed to talk back, wasn't allowed to really have a voice, right?
mm.
And technically got at times got beatings, and which wouldn't be acceptable today in today's
Yeah.
age. But
Right.
but because of that, as a dad, I decided, there was there's family history, right, of men and how they portray themselves, and how they behave and react and so forth, and the way they carry themselves. But we have, certainly that's part of our DNA. There are things
Mm,
that are passed down through our DNA, but we can also make a decision on how we want to be as men, as fathers, as
mm,
dads. And so, with me, I made some decisions. I said, I want to be a change agent. I want to make some positive changes in the way that I raise my child. And that wasn't clear to me until I had a child, right? And I got to
mm,
thinking the things that I would want to do different. Uh,
mm.
not that my parents were bad parents, but
So
the
let's
only
go there.
thing.
Let's go there before you go
Okay,
to
all
your
right.
thing. But that because I'm gonna come back to that. I want to
All
go
right.
back to like where you was about to say about your parents not necessarily being bad. So kind of talk to me the history about you being raised by your father or a father figure? Who was those individuals? If you can kind of take me back to maybe elementary, middle school age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, from an influence standpoint, my dad was in my life, right? So I certainly looked up to my dad. And even at a young age, he was, I would say that he was never really heavily involved, right? I mean, he was there, he was in the house, but he wasn't really heavily involved in raising me or
Mm,
any of the children, really.
okay.
He provided, he made sure that we had food on the table, that type of thing. But involved, he wasn't. I think I got most of my mentoring from a male standpoint came from my uncle, so his brother. And
Wow.
part of that was because my uncle fell ill, right? And he fell ill because of the lifestyle that he led. And so the
Okay.
lifestyle he led caused him to have a lot of issues in his life. And he would pull me aside often and just talk to me about, things I should do and should not do or consider doing or not doing. And so that was very influential to me. And he passed away when I was a junior in high school,
Oh
but
wow.
he was influential. Then my brother, he also he's 11 years older than me, but he was also very influential in my life as well. And because he was older, he had some experiences, and plus he was young, right? So we were
Mhm.
closer in age. So he had some influence on me as well.
So what kind of information, like what kind of conversations were you and your uncle having, and then kind of compare those for me with the conversations you was having with your with your brother, because those seem like those would be kind of a little
Yeah,
bit different but helpful.
yeah, very, very much so. So like my uncle, he would often say, uh, "Don't do like I did," or "Don't be like me." And
Mm.
then he would tell me these stories, right, about how what he did when he was growing up, right? And he was a bad boy. I mean, he was in a, I grew up in a little town, and it was a little town we grew up in, but we didn't have gangs, but they were gangs. I mean, we had one side of town was against another side of town, and they didn't shoot each other, but they used knives, and I mean they cut
Oh
each. I mean they were stabbing and everything else, and so
wow.
it was from that perspective it was tough, and he just made bad decisions, right? He just made bad decisions,
Mm.
and he would tell me stories about those decisions, and basically help me understand how to process it differently. And so also my brother, he was in the Navy, right? And
Okay.
so, but he was an influence to me because I looked up to him because of the way that he carried himself, the way that when he was in high school, I was a lot younger than him, right? And I
Yeah.
was just starting school, but he was popular, right? And he was always clean, carried himself like a gentleman, right? And he was a really good athlete, and so I always looked up to him. And he would just take me aside. And he'd just teach me stuff, right? Like it was simple things like how to dribble the ball, right? How to catch a ball, or that type of thing. But as I got older, and as I became an adult, he would always emphasize, it's okay to make a mistake, but don't make the same mistakes twice.
Mm.
Learn from your mistakes, but don't make the same mistakes twice. And so that's
Yeah.
something I've always carried with me, that it's cool, and I manage people. I kind of use that same philosophy. I say, it's okay to make a mistake, but let's
Mm.
learn from it, and let's be better. And I've always had success with that. So that was one tip he gave me, and I've kind of modified it and used it as my own. But yeah,
That's
that
good stuff. So when
yeah.
did you what was the age that so he was in high school when he was kind of mentoring you a little bit? Is it
Yeah.
that y'all, and then what was so I guess what was the feeling that you got or thought that you remember at that time that this is I'm looking up to him and this is what I'm getting from him, or did that happen later and you say, oh, okay, this is what I remember, that this is what my brother taught me? Was it in the moment or after the moment, basically, is what I'm asking.
Oh, a little of both, right?
Okay.
So growing up, when I was obviously a lot younger than him, he was in high school, and those are my earliest memories when he was in high school, and then when he went off to college and that type of thing, and when he went off to college, I obviously was starting to grow and get bigger. When he come home from the Navy, he went to the
Mm,
Navy for that, and I'm bigger than he is, right? So I would wear, he would come home, I'd wear his clothes and his shoes,
yeah.
until got much larger than him. But, for a
Yeah.
while, we were kind of the same size. And so we, that was something you would think that you would do it with your dad, right? But
Hmm.
I was
Right.
doing it more so with him because he interacted with me more, right? And so he was there, and I think that's important. We should interact with our kids, and so
Mm.
he kind of played that role. He didn't know he was playing that role, but that's the role he really kind of played for me in my life.
Wow. Okay. So then high school is over, college happens, or after. I don't know if you went to college or not, but after high school, did you go to college then?
I didn't immediately go to college.
Okay.
I actually started working professionally, so it was kind of a strange thing. And my brother played a role in that. So
Okay.
he wanted to get me out of the little town that I grew up in. So I was headed actually to Austin, and instead he said, I was going to go to technical school. He says, no, I want you to come up to Fort Worth, and he and another guy that he reported to at the time at a bank, they had a training program in IT,
Yeah.
and it was like going to college, man. I mean, I had to study, I had to take tests. I mean,
Wow.
it was pretty intense, but
Yeah.
I learned a lot. But he's one that got me started really in my career, by
Wow.
pointing me in that direction.
Wow.
And so he was involved from a lot.
That's pretty
Even
cool.
he might have intentionally been doing that, but I don't know if he really knew how much I looked up to him.
Wow. Have you ever had a chance to talk to him about it?
Oh yeah, we've had a lot of
Oh,
conversations. Yeah, we're
oh,
very close. Yeah, in fact, myself and my siblings were all very close. So
that's good.
it's a pretty big gap between some of us, right? So
Yeah.
my brother's 11 years older, my sister's 10 years older. Then I have a younger sister who's 6 years younger. So we're kind of
Oh.
spread out.
They did spread y'all out. Wow. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so you get to the point of working where you are. So when is the how old were you when you had your first kid, or do you
I
have
have my
one?
first what?
You have one kid, or yeah, how many
Yeah,
kids
we
do you
have.
have? Okay. So how old were you when you had your first kid?
Um,
Oh, your
I,
one son.
yeah, I was 30. I was 34.
Okay. So you were 34. So from the before you had your child, like, were you looking forward to having kids, or were you hesitant to have kids? Like, what was the thought process
Yeah.
between that time?
Well, yeah, I definitely was looking forward to having kids. My sister had two kids out of wedlock, and so we all stayed in a little two-bedroom house, right? So a
Oh
little
wow.
four-room, so four-room house basically, and we all
Yeah.
stayed there together. So they were like my little brothers. But I think from that experience, they're like 10 years younger than me, right? So from that experience, I wanted to have children, right?
Mm.
And I felt like I'd be a good dad, but not really knowing why I felt that way, other than just I wanted to have children. And so when my wife and I, before we got married, that's one of the things we talked about, is having children, and how many children we wanted, that type of thing. And that's
Yeah.
really when it kind of hit home, that we wanted children. Now we couldn't have children naturally. So it turns
Okay.
out we couldn't have children, but so we adopted our son. He was a newborn, right, straight out of the hospital.
Yeah.
And so, the interesting thing about that, and the Bible really kind of talks about it, is
Talk
that
to me. Yeah.
you know when you adopt someone, they really have more rights than someone who was birthed, from your
Yes.
parts. And,
Mm.
there was no difference for me than if we had birthed him, right? And he, when we found out about him, we went into the adoption process
Mm.
9 months before he was born. So we went through, all the interviews, et cetera, building it up, building up. So 9 months later, it just so happens our son was born.
No
So
way.
yeah, so it was pretty surreal from that perspective. And
Yeah.
so when the first time we saw him, we had an option whether or not we wanted him or not, but it was immediate. We fell in love, and he's been a great kid. Yeah.
Wow. So kind of walk me through because man, that is incredible. Can you talk to me about like what made you decide you wanted to adopt versus just deal with, not being able to have a kid?
Yeah.
Because some people are kind of reluctant and hesitant to do that, but what made you step forward?
Well, it was I think it was a situation where we realized that it was a God thing really,
Mm.
because we realized that regardless if it was a child from our seed or not,
Yeah.
that we would love that child, unconditionally.
Mm.
And my entire family, my wife's entire family, accepted him as if though he was our natural birth child. And
Mm.
so we just knew that. I don't know if it's just being led by the Spirit or whatever, but we just knew that we would accept him and he would be accepted as our child. And so
Wow.
that's the way that we pursued it. And just so happens that everything just really worked out. Yeah.
That is
And so so
incredible.
so for us, we don't ever really think about it. And we have been very open with him from day one. I mean, before he could understand, we've always told him that he was adopted, and
Mm.
that he has access to his records and all that kind of stuff. So, but even for him, uh, he just sees himself as our child, and
What
we
age was that? What age was it when you decided to or just talk to him about it?
from the beginning. Yeah, it's
Like
never.
two, like it was like birth.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh wow.
literally. Yeah, I mean, even because we used to read to him before he could talk and all that kind of
Okay.
stuff. He became an avid reader, right, because of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he also, we was talk to him about it even before he could understand what it meant. And I don't know what age it was, but I'm pretty
That's
sure it was
okay.
pretty old, pretty
So
young.
what makes you want? What makes you want to tell him? The reason why I ask, what makes you want to tell him so early is because I know a couple people that have adopted some kids, and they haven't necessarily told them
Yeah,
just yet, and they are in a age that they would understand.
yeah.
And I also have
So
some people that did tell, and they felt that there was a rebellion as that happened there as well.
yeah, I've seen that as well. But
Okay.
so our deal was is that we believed that by telling him that it was the right thing to do, because we have witnessed situations where the child become older,
Hmm.
uh, teenager, adult, right, and then they found out somehow by accident, or it was on a deathbed type of situation, or and
Wow.
so that the adopted parents were on a deathbed type of situation. Then they
Yeah.
learned that they were adopted, and it just caused so much bitterness. We've even seen it, in a part of our family. We've seen that happen. So
Mm.
where the child wasn't told, and they found out by accident, and it just caused a lot of bitterness. So we said, we want to avoid that situation. We're willing to take the risk that there could be a rebellious spirit that comes out of that. But I
Mm.
think it's right for them to know, the full details. Something could happen to us, and
Mm.
he needs to know that. So we just made that decision, take the risk, And for us, it turned out great. There was
That's
no
good.
issues. Yeah.
So yeah, so as he's you know, getting he's born, of course, and then you having to get talk to me about like the first couple of years of you being a parent,
Yeah.
and what was the struggles and successes? Because I for me, I tell you mine first. Like we was
Okay.
scared, right?
Hmm.
We was scared. Like we was like, okay, should the baby sleep here? How much sleep do the baby need to get? I mean, we packing the bag everywhere we go. You know, we didn't know what to take, what not to take. So, but that was kind of how it was for the first couple of years. How about for you?
Well, I don't know if we were ever scared or if I was ever scared. My wife was a little bit. I don't know if I was ever scared. I was so excited, right?
Mm, okay.
And plus, uh, my real concerns. I was probably overprotective, right? So I think that was one thing I was initially was
Okay.
overprotective. I just didn't want anything to happen to him, right? And so as well as my wife, so I was probably overprotective, but never was really scared. I would ask questions, right, of people because I wanted to know how to best, raise, my
Mm,
child. So
yeah.
I would ask older people, and I've always been that way. I've always asked older people. It kind of goes back to my uncle, right? I've always asked older people
Yeah.
opinions because there's a lot of wisdom there, right?
That is
Experience.
true.
So, but yeah, never scared, but excited, but I didn't want to make a mistake with them either, and
Mm.
and that's an impossible thing,
That
right?
is very much. We
I
not
mean,
perfect.
yeah, I mean it's impossible. You're gonna make mistakes. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the child may not realize it, but you realize it. Right? You say,
Mm,
okay, I should have handled that differently. I should have
mm.
said something differently. I should have given them a different advice or whatever it may be. That you can't avoid the mistakes, but that's how everyone learns, right?
Yeah, you learn from your mistakes for sure. So what has it? So as he's growing, then and what do you remember about him as a kid that some maybe a story? He's like, okay, this right here is I'll never forget this moment.
Ooh, wow, there's a lot of those.
Yeah.
What one thing that about him, he was what would you say? He was very aggressive and did not like to lose.
Okay.
He
Very
would
competitive.
even at a very young age, yeah, very competitive. He would do whatever it would take to win anything, and so we actually had to curve that some in him. Had to steer him, because I mean he would do whatever. I mean literally whatever it takes. That if that meant doing something to another kid, he was going to make sure the other kid didn't win. so
Wow.
so he was very very competitive. So and he still is, but we were able to steer it in the right direction. But he was because and he was a really good athlete.
Mhm.
And I didn't raise him to be an athlete, right? But he wanted to play soccer originally. So okay, he's like 4 years old, man. So it's like,
Wow.
yeah, okay, let's go play soccer. So I took
Yeah.
him and got him on a team, and I was like, man, that kid is really athletic for a 4 year old.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he was just blazing fast, and he had this coordination. It's like that's not normal, right? So, but he
Wow.
turned out he was just all his life, except for middle school. He got awkward through growth
Mm.
through growth. But other than that, he was really a good athlete. And so, but yeah, he was just really highly competitive, and he would always do things that we would say, okay, you can't do
So,
that.
what are some ways that you was able to stir him in a direction? What would be some advice that you can give for a dad or a mom that's having that type of situation?
So I don't know if this works for everyone, right?
Right.
But what we did. My sister, when we adopted Jonathan, our son, she would say, how are you going to get him to do? things he's supposed to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would always say, I'm just going to talk to him, right? And the interesting thing is that that's exactly what happened as he grew up. We would sit and talk, and
Mm.
and you know the interesting, and my wife still says this today. If I sit down and talk to him about anything, he always listens, and so I think that was just a blessing because it didn't
Wow.
have to be that way, right? That's the reason
Yeah.
why I know it doesn't work with everyone. But for me, it was a simple matter of we established that early on. We would talk. I'd talk to him like an adult. He was like 2 years old, man. We'd have a conversation. I
Yeah.
talked to an adult. And eventually when he started talking, we just had conversations and talked, and
Yeah.
we're honest with one another. And that turned out to be the way that, we were able to say, the things that you should and should not do. And he was compliant. He was a very compliant child, if you
Wow.
will.
That's
Just kind
pretty
of,
good. Yeah.
yeah, just not normal really, but he was really very compliant.
Not normal.
I don't think it was normal, man.
Well,
You know, at
I,
least it wasn't for me because I was not that way.
okay.
I was an experimenter. Even if I knew I was going to get in trouble, I had to try whatever it was. I was going to do it. So, and even if that meant I got a spanking or whatever, I had to try it. And he wasn't that way. He was actually the opposite of that. Yeah.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have four kids, and there is one that's pretty compliant. Um, that's our second. So we have 11, 9, 7, and 2.
Okay.
And the 9-year old is what you would call a people pleaser. So he is the one that tries to be compliant. I
Yeah.
mean, he does get in trouble, but he is the one that's trying to avoid trouble, but sometimes he gets into it, right?
Yeah.
Then we have our the oldest one. She is she definitely tries to stay out of trouble, but her mouth sometimes gets her into trouble, right? But
Yeah.
that's a byproduct of me, right? Because I'm
Okay.
sarcastic, and so she sometimes gives that back to me. And then we have the 7-year old who doesn't seem to be have a care about him getting disciplined, right? Like,
That was me.
we
Yeah.
that was
That was me. Yeah.
so we've tried several different things, and then we have a one that's about to be 3. She's learning, right?
Yeah.
So she doesn't like to be disciplined. She knows that, but she's definitely trying to figure out what are her boundaries. So you know how it is for 3-year
Yes,
olds.
yes, I
They,
do.
they they try every nerve you got. You know.
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
I try what you said. Like I can have a conversation with them all. Doing these podcasts is what has, I think, tempered me to hear what you all say as dads and what's working in your house. And I try all of them.
Yeah.
You're my 48th interview, and I
And
probably tried.
congratulations on
Thank you. I've tried all like every situation, like the talking one or the
that. Yeah.
time out one. The talking has helped me the most because they're more reasonable than you think, right? Kids are somewhat logical
They are.
individuals if you teach it to them, right? Like if you're being irrational, it's gonna be very challenging for you to come over here and try to talk to them about logic.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. Now, one of the things we also did is that the thing that hurt our son the most to be grounded from something that he liked to do.
Okay.
So that was one thing that we basically reverted to is that if he did something he wasn't supposed to do, if he get grounded, and we'd make it hurt.
Mm,
So we'd make it
yeah.
last, and so
Yeah.
he would not. He didn't like being grounded at all. Yeah.
Who does? So how long would you ground them?
Well, it
How did you
depends.
decide? Yeah.
So I mean,
How did you decide on that?
yeah, we've grounded them from stuff for a month, right? So and like I said, made it painful. Most of the time it was like a week, but it depends on if it was a repeat offense, that type of deal,
Okay.
and maybe a month. Yeah.
Was there ever a time where he could shorten his sentence? Or with
Yeah,
the
yeah,
would it
we had
be
some grace from time to time. Yeah, for sure.
how did you
And
decide on that?
basically behavior. And
Mm,
so, and he's on good behavior, and not disobeying or doing things he wasn't supposed to do. Then we would shorten it, and we would tell him that we're shortening it because this is why we're doing that, right? And
mm,
so it wasn't that just because he was asking, he never would ask, but we would tell him because you have done the things we've asked you to do, and you hadn't been disobedient or whatever, we're going to let you have whatever it was, his game back, whatever it happened to be, right?
yeah,
Or let you go spend the night with a friend, because that would be one of the groundings as well. You can't go spend the night with a friend, or you can't have
mhm.
a friend come over, that type of deal. So we would definitely show grace.
So did y'all talk to each other about what the punishment would be, or was there somebody that one of you that decided on the punishment and then talk? Like how did y'all decide on? Does that?
Yeah. So yeah, it was usually a collective decision,
Okay.
but a lot of times it was like my wife is like, yeah, you need to do this.
Okay.
So and most of the time I was in agreement. Once I understood, I said, but you got to tell me what's happened, what's going on. I want to know the details. But yeah, so most of the time I would go along with whatever she had decided,
Okay.
because I would be the enforcer, but she would be the one that was giving me the instructions in the background. And so what I learned early on, it's that old saying, happy wife, happy life, man. So
Um, oh,
she was twisted, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'm not going. I'm not going. So she could be twisted at you, but she's not going to be twisted at me, type of deal.
I'm laughing because I think I've heard that this in a week, like 4 times this week. Happy wife, happy life. I I think I've heard it in the last week 4 different times,
Wow,
and I think it's such a true statement as a husband. I mean, just a side note, like there's so many conversations on these different platforms talking about how men don't you shouldn't you should be ahead of your household and
right,
not and not listen to your wife. You need to be the leader, right? Well, there is some truth to that, but at the same time, a great leader makes sure that the people that are following them are well taken care of.
absolutely.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's a whole conversation right there, brother.
right, right. So yeah, so I just that was just a side step because it was on my mind.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, but as he gets to like high school, like how much time will uh, maybe a different question. How did you interact with him? Seeing as though you said back when you was thinking about being a dad,
Yeah.
that was one of the things that you wanted to make sure you did. So how did you do that?
So basically, supporting him in everything that he wanted to do. So
Oh,
I never missed any event that he had. So if it was
mm,
a school event,
mm,
a class type event, a project that he was working on, where parents got to come up, or there's even younger meet the parent type days, all of those type of things. I was always there. When
mm.
he started playing sports, I never missed a game that he played in any sport that he played. And that was intentional.
Okay.
And like I mentioned, my dad wasn't that involved. He never really came to any of my sporting events, or any of my in school type events. And he would come to a football game, if it was in town,
Mm.
but he wouldn't pay to come in. He'd sit outside the fence and look and peer through the fence, but
You
he
saw
wouldn't be
that?
paying.
You
Huh?
could see him at the fence?
Yeah, I knew where he was. He was just always at the same spot all the time. And so, yeah, so I would intentionally say, I want to be involved. I want to be present. And so that's what I did. I was present for every event, and that's so my deal was that I would support him through my presence.
That's good stuff. That's the greatest gift.
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
presence. That's,
Sacrifice.
yeah.
It was a sacrifice. You know, I missed out on things for myself, you know, whether professionally or otherwise, because I said, you know, I'm gonna do that. I have this window of time,
Good.
and that window, once it's gone, you can never get it back.
Very good
So,
point.
you know, you just have to make the sacrifice. That's what parents do. You know, we make a sacrifice.
That's good. I think your lens may have got a small unfocused. I
Oh,
thought it was
sure.
going to readjust. I thought it was going to be readjusted, but it didn't
Let's see.
readjust.
Hold on a second.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a
I'm
little better.
blurred.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I'm not sure why. I see it trying to focus, but I'm not sure why it's out of focus.
Okay.
So
I
apologies.
mean, no, it's no worries. I thought it was going to refocus, and so I didn't say anything. But I just wanted you to be aware. But I'm fine.
Yeah,
Um,
I see that. Yeah, I wasn't paying attention to that.
okay.
Let me try one other thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
No worries.
That hasn't happened before.
Okay. Maybe it's me.
Well, it's on my end for
Oh,
sure.
there it is. There it is. Whatever
Oh,
that
there it
was.
goes. It corrected itself.
Wow. Okay. Cool. That's crazy. That's what I thought it was going to do. But okay. All right.
Yeah.
So back into the subject matter. So you were being intentional, uh, and as he goes off to graduates from high school, was there a conversation about him leaving the nest, if you will? If so, what was those discussions, conversations about?
Yeah, it was actually a pretty simple conversation. And, you know, we drove him to school, you know, when he left, we drove him off to college. And uh, but the conversation really was simple. It was this. I told him to not have any regrets. And so
What? That's it? Wow.
so the conversation was about, you know, to make good decisions and think about the decisions you make. And will it be something that you will eventually regret? You know if you're doing the right thing or not. You know if you're into something you're not supposed to be into. You're not just not doing what you're supposed to do. Will you regret that at some point? So I said, you
Mm,
know, do your best to not to have no regrets from your college experience.
that's good stuff. Does he remember that conversation? Have y'all talked about that?
You know, we never have talked about that conversation. So now I will though.
Excellent.
So
Okay.
yeah, but yeah, I don't think we've ever talked about that conversation.
Okay.
We've talked about dropping him. You know, we've had the conversation about dropping him off, and you know, just the emotions that were involved and all that, but not the actual conversation. Yeah,
Okay, that would be an interesting conversation in itself to
yeah,
kind of see what he remembers, and then if he had some key moments that he recounted that conversation. Because I remember for me, my dad was not in my life, but my mom wanted him to take me off to college,
okay,
right? And how awkward is that?
yeah, yeah, it is very.
And so, but she couldn't take me because she had to work. And so she was just like, well, you should ask your dad. She was always a big proponent of, and still to this day, always telling me to talk to him, even though he doesn't seem to want to be in my life, or whatever, right? And so I called him. He says yes. He takes me, and because he's never hadn't been in my life, the conversation I don't remember it about any words of wisdom necessarily that I would probably even want to have, but
Okay.
it's very possible he gave me some, right?
Hmm.
But there was no connection to our relationship prior, no rapport, if I can say, yeah, there was no rapport,
Okay.
and so it was very awkward because he would try to talk to me about the scriptures and stuff like that, and I'm like,
Right.
well, you haven't even been here. Well, I don't understand this. What is going on here? I was
Yeah.
like, I was 18, right? 18 at the
Yeah.
time, and I still remember he thought he was doing a big thing by letting me drive 30 minutes outside of going into the college.
Mm.
That-
Okay.
I'm like, I'm like, man, I've been driving my mom's car for at least a year and a half now. Like,
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm just saying for me, I remember that scenario. So I would be interested in seeing what, or hearing what he remembers from that car ride.
Yeah,
So
I'm definitely going to have that conversation with him. I never have thought about having that conversation. Yeah.
no doubt. All right. I like to try to figure out a way to make somebody think about something they haven't thought about.
Oh, that's
So
a
that's
good
cool.
one. Yeah,
That's
that's a good
cool.
one.
Cool. So what have you before we get to the last parts of the questions, what advice do you remember most currently in the current times, maybe the last couple of years, that you've given to your son, who's now, you say he's 29 now?
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Man, we've had so many conversations. One of the things, he when because he had his son outside of marriage, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And we had the conversation about if not to go down that road, right? Because it's just I know it happens,
Hmm.
but that's a responsibility. So we've had a lot of conversations about that. And so when our grandson was born, he was actually born on my birthday.
That's crazy.
And I was that God has a sense of humor because I was not feeling it, man. I was not feeling it. But
Wow.
when he was born on my birthday, it was like, man, I was like, God, what are you doing? So
For the rest of your life, man, you
he's there, and he and the grandbaby and I have a tremendous relationship. I mean,
Mm,
he I am his man, right? And so he wants to come spend time with Big Daddy. I mean, so even at 2 years old, so
yeah.
it's kind of we got a bond. But one of the things that the conversation I had with my son was that everybody's life has changed forever, and it's by choice, right? Because as a grandparent or as grandparents, we can say, you made your bed, you can lie in it, right? We're not going to be involved, but we made a choice to be involved, and because of that, my son and I, we've had the conversation about decisions you make. Some are decisions that are irreversible,
Wow.
and some of those decisions you have to live with it for the rest of your life. And so I said, this is one of them. There are other decisions that you make that are, they're reversible. You may have he had a great job. He decided he was going to quit that job and, go start a business with a young man that I told him, I said, that dude is no good.
Mm,
You don't want to do that. But he decided to do it. I said, it's your decision. And it turns out it cost him, right? It cost him financially, cost him from friendships and that type of thing because
yeah.
of that decision. Now those are reversible, right? He can he can repair. If the friends want to, he can repair friendships, right? He can be restored financially, but when you have a child or that type of thing, it's permanent, right? It's something that's irreversible. So we've had conversations about those things that are repairable, those things that are irreversible, those things that you can try to reverse, but it may or may not happen. So those are type of I say those are just adult conversations that you have to have, and hopefully something sticks. But it comes down to the core of that conversation is about decisions. How do you make good decisions? Then what are the results of those decisions that you make?
That's really good. I try to have those conversations on a regular basis with my own kids. So that's
Yeah.
good. Thank you for that. So we're gonna get into our questions. You're gonna have to give me a number between. You're gonna have to give me three numbers between 1 and 45. And what's your first number?
When 1 and 45, 3.
What was the first place you stayed away from home?
First place I stayed away from home. You mean
Yeah.
uh, by myself?
Yes. By yourself, maybe when you was a kid, when you got middle school, high school, even it could have
What- what-
been never and then now. So the first time
So,
you stayed away from your house, it could have been over a friend's house.
oh, okay, okay. Um, yeah, so I think uh, probably don't remember the first time, but
Okay.
when uh, stayed with cousins, and so I grew up in a little town in Central Texas, and we came to Fort Worth, and I stayed with cousins, and I thought that was, I don't even think I was in school yet, right? And I thought that was a blast, man. Came to the city, riding bikes up and down the city streets and over in Stop Six, and
Oh, that's
it
15
was,
minutes from me.
oh, really? So yeah, it was a blast. So that was the first memory.
Cool. Oh, that's what's up. Okay. Next question. Next number.
Uh, 5.
Okay. If you went back to high school, what would you do differently?
Um, I would say be more aware and conscious of my education, and pray that God will allow me to see people for who they are.
Wow.
Because I grew up in a town where there were 2 blacks in my uh, high school, my senior class.
Wow.
So it was 2 to 4 blacks my whole school, grade school years.
Yeah.
So, and Central Texas, I'm 62 years old, man. So,
Yeah.
this is a while back, and so there was a lot of discrimination, and I didn't realize that. I was pretty oblivious, so that was kind of a blessing.
Mm.
But I think when I got to high school, it would have been good to know, because I think I could have gotten some good counsel from those who were not, because I was getting zero counsel from those who were.
Wow.
So, yeah,
Wow. Okay.
so it would have been good to know.
That's good stuff. Okay. Give me one last number.
All right, so they're all low numbers. 7.
Which is the very best Christmas present you have received or given to someone else?
Uh, yeah, so I would say the very best that I've received. There's been a lot of great ones, but I just go back to, from a child, as a child, when I received my very first bicycle, right?
Really?
And
Okay.
right,
Yeah.
and so the reason that was it stands out is because what I eventually understood. So, little town, you know, uh, a lot of, what would you say, people my parents' age could not get credit,
Yeah. Okay.
and they didn't make a lot of money.
Yeah.
My mom put the bicycle on layaway,
Mm.
and I don't know how long it took her, but it took her a while to pay it off, right? And
Mm.
so, but she paid it off in time for me to have it for Christmas. And so, that became special to me once I really understood the sacrifices she had to make in order for me to have that bicycle. Yeah.
Thank you
And,
for that story, man. Go ahead. Finish.
and then, as far as giving, I also go back to, as a young man, um, I'm a giver, right? And so I give of my time, my talent, my treasure. I give.
Okay.
I've always given a lot, but
Mm.
my parents, I gave them matching uh, recliners when I was, I don't know, I was early 20s before I was married. So I was probably 21 20 years old, 21, somewhere in there. And I gave them matching recliners. And man, they kept those recliners in great condition for at least 20 years, man. Unbelievable that I was surprised that but they lasted and they still worked great and they were in good condition. And it was pretty amazing. But they kept those recliners about 20 years. And they were so excited that they got new pieces of furniture for the house, and it was and they sat right beside each other. The there's a little table in the middle, sat in that same spot for almost 20 years, man.
That's good. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So then that's good stuff. That had to be a great gift for them to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So here we go to our final two questions. The first one of those is, what TV dad would you say you have the same characteristics, or would you say you resemble the most, past or present?
Wow. That's a hard one.
Thank you.
That's a hard one. I and only because of the passion. I because you didn't see him being a dad, right? But you knew what he felt about his children and his family, and that was the gladiator, right? He loved his family, and he wanted to get back to his family, but because of the situation, he was the general of the army, and so he couldn't get back to his family, but he loved his children, right? And he was heartbroken when they were taken from him, right? They were murdered, but you could tell the passion and love that he had for his children. So that's what comes to mind. So you would think of some of the family TV shows and the dads on those shows. Yeah, that's the one I think about. I think about
I'm gonna have to go look that one up. I've never heard of the Gladiator. I gotta go
you've
find
never
it.
seen the movie The Gladiator? Or not The Gladiator, but Gladiator.
Oh, okay, yes. You talking about the movie?
Yeah,
Okay,
Gladiator.
down there. I thought you were saying the Gladiator. Yes,
I could say that. Gladiator.
Yeah, he fought for. Oh, yes, that is a good one. That is a good one. I got to stretch it out to say TV or movie now. You got me changing. Okay, that's good. Oh man. Okay, let me move on. That's a good one though.
Right.
And the last question, huh?
Yeah. That's a tough question.
Yeah. Okay. So last question is, what or how would you like for your kids to remember you, or what would you like for them to say about you as a dad?
That I was loving, I was caring, I was empathetic, that I was a provider, that I left a legacy, uh, and that uh, I was a family man, and I was a man's man. So I think those are some of the things that immediately pop into my head.
Well, I definitely thank you for your time. This has been incredible. It went by faster than I thought. I kept watching the timer, and then I just stopped watching it. I mean, you had some really good insight, and I really appreciate it. So for those that watch, make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, how could they get in touch with you?
They can reach me through my email. So CDENTS10. So my first initial, my first name, and my last name, CDENTS10 @gmail.com.
For sure. And then you'll have the final words. I'm going to step off. You can give us some more words of wisdom. Tell us what you want to say. And here's your time. I'm going to remove myself and you can go.
Oh, okay. Well, it's a pleasure to be on this podcast, and I hope I said something that resonates with those who listen. My encouragement is that, you know, to be a man, and men, you know, they take care of their family. And so my encouragement to you is to always stand for right. And you know, one of the mottos that I've given my son is to, you know, always do the right thing, and do the things that are right, and it always works out, you know, for the better. Even if it doesn't initially, in the long run, it always works out for the better, and to always treat people as you want to be treated as well. So, but thanks for having me on. Enjoyed it.
I appreciate it, man. This has been good.
Yeah,
Thanks for those tuning in, and we out of here. Deuces.
all right. Thank you. Take care, Eli.